The untold story of Britain's British Alcatraz. Belmarsh Supermax revealed. The first breach. Before we begin, if you want more real criminal investigations, more deep dives into the world's darkest and most impenetrable prisons, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Now let's step inside Britain's most feared fortress. They call it British Alcatraz, a prison so fortified that even the air around it feels restrained. Belmarsh, Southeast London, a place where concrete meets cold silence, and where some of the highest-risk inmates in the country disappear into a world most people will never see. But on a rainy Wednesday morning in November, everything changed. A single alarm, one shrill, piercing note, cut through the gray dawn just after 5:40 a.m. Officers rushed toward the high-security unit, the most restricted block inside Belmarsh. Built to hold violent offenders and internationally watched terrorism suspects, the unit was engineered to be impossible to breach. Yet something was wrong. When the responding guards reached cell 37, they found the door slightly ajar. That was the first impossibility. The second was the inmate, Leon Tranter, a former military engineer turned criminal mastermind, known for a string of high-precision burglaries across Europe. Not violent, but brilliant. Calculated, cold, and now missing. Within minutes, the entire prison went into lockdown. Every corridor sealed. Every gate slammed shut. Every alarm on the perimeter roared to life. Outside, Met police vehicles swarmed the streets, as if the city itself was under siege. But there was one detail the officers couldn't understand. The CCTV showed nothing. From 2 a.m. to 5:40 a.m., every camera inside the high-security unit flickered with static. 3.5 hours of uninterrupted blindness. Belmarsh's most protected wing, supposedly immune to technical failure, had gone completely dark. Chief Inspector Amelia Ward arrived at 6:22 a.m., stepping into the cold blue-lit unit with a growing sense that this was more than an escape. Something threaded beneath the surface. Something deliberate. She studied the cell. No signs of forced entry. No signs of tampering. No tools. No chaos. Just a neatly folded blanket on the bed, and a single envelope left behind. Inside was a sheet of paper containing only 7 handwritten words. Check the past. The truth is there. Ward frowned. The phrase wasn't a threat. It was a message, almost a direction. And it was familiar. Too familiar. Over the next hour, the investigation team uncovered more anomalies. A guard scheduled to patrol the unit never arrived for his shift. His phone was off. His home address empty. His uniform missing. His car gone. It was as if he had vanished into the same darkness that swallowed the CCTV footage. But the biggest question gnawed at Ward as she walked the stark, echoing halls. Why would Tranter escape now? He had no known associates on the outside. No family contacting him. No pending court date. Nothing in his files suggested a motive. His legal appeals were dead. His sentence was airtight. He had no reason to run, unless something or someone forced him to. At 9:14 a.m., Ward ordered a deeper sweep of the guard station. And that was when an officer discovered a small, metallic device hidden under the desk, a signal scrambler, sophisticated enough to shut down an entire surveillance wing without triggering backup systems. This wasn't a one-man escape. It was a coordinated operation, professionally executed, and funded by someone with reach. Ward stared at the device, her pulse tightening. The truth wasn't buried in Belmarsh's present. It was rooted somewhere deeper, somewhere older, just like the message hinted. But before she could piece it together, an officer shouted from down the hall. They had found something behind the ventilation panel, something sealed in a plastic bag. A second envelope. Ward opened it, and the moment she read the note inside, the entire investigation shifted. What she saw changed everything. The shadow in the past. Chief Inspector Amelia Ward held the second envelope carefully, as if the paper itself carried a pulse. She unfolded it slowly, expecting another cryptic message, or maybe a clue planted to taunt investigators. But this one was different. Inside was a photograph. A grainy, decades-old image of a group of military engineers standing shoulder to shoulder in front of a desert compound. Dust, heat, harsh sunlight. Most of the faces were unremarkable, blurred men in uniform whose identities had been swallowed by time. But two faces were clear. One was Leon Tranter, 20 years younger, smiling faintly, without the hardened expression of the man who had vanished hours earlier. The second face made Ward stop breathing for a moment. It was her father, Colonel Andrew Ward, a man she barely knew, a man whose career had been sealed under layers of classified documents, whose past had always been spoken of in half-sentences and softened tones, and apparently a man who once stood beside a future high-security inmate inside some unnamed desert facility. Ward felt the air shift around her. She forced herself to keep her expression still. The forensic officers milling around her had no idea what the photo meant, and they didn't need to. Not yet. She placed the photo back into the envelope and slipped it into an evidence bag. She needed answers. Immediately. Pull every file we have on Tranter's military history, she ordered. Full background. I want his deployment records, service assignments, and any sealed documents flagged for immediate review. Her voice was steady. Her pulse wasn't. By midday, the prison had transitioned from chaos to a cold, controlled unease. Officers double-checked locks that had never failed. Engineers examined cables that had never been touched. Every inch of the high-security unit felt violated, as if an invisible presence had walked through the walls. But it was the disappearance of Officer Daniel Cole, the missing guard, that worried Ward even more. His shift history revealed a pattern she couldn't ignore. Cole had worked every night shift in the high-security unit for the past 2 weeks. And Tranter had met with no visitors, had no access to tools, and no documented communication with the outside world. The escape wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't desperate. It was rehearsed, planned, executed with precision. But by whom? Ward's next stop was Military Archives, a steel and glass fortress 2 hours outside London. During the drive, the same questions kept circling in her mind. Her father's involvement, Tranter's military past, and the possibility, however small, that this escape had nothing to do with Belmarsh. That it started long before Tranter ever became an inmate. When she arrived at the archive building, she was escorted to a secure research room. A thick folder was placed on the table, a file she had never been cleared to view until today. Tranter's service record. She opened it. The first pages were standard, training, deployment dates, commendations. But the deeper she read, the more the documents shifted in tone. Redactions, blacked out paragraphs, entire pages missing. Then she reached a section labeled Operation Harrogate, debriefing notes. She skimmed the first page. The mission took place in an undisclosed Middle Eastern location, a covert engineering project, a team of classified operatives, deaths that had been ruled accidental, and a final note stating that the project had been terminated with political discretion. Ward felt a chill run through her. Her father's name appeared 3 times. Tranter's appeared 5. And Officer Daniel Cole, the missing guard, appeared once. 20 years ago, they had all been part of the same classified team. Whatever happened in that desert compound had tied them together long before Belmarsh existed. Ward closed the file, deep in thought. Tranter didn't escape to disappear. He escaped to finish something that started decades ago. But just as she leaned back in her chair, her phone vibrated sharply. A call from Belmarsh. The perimeter guards had found Officer Cole's abandoned car on the outskirts of Woolwich. The engine was cold. The doors were unlocked. And inside the glove compartment was a third envelope, with Ward's name written on it. The message in the dark. The third envelope felt heavier than the others, even though Ward knew it weighed no more than a sheet of paper. She opened it carefully, standing in the glow of a street lamp near Officer Cole's abandoned car. The cold night air wrapped around her like a warning. Inside was a single note. No photograph this time. No clues. Just a sentence, written in uneven block letters. You can't bury a building. Ward reread it twice, then looked at the officers around her. None of them understood the meaning. But she did. Immediately. The phrase wasn't random. It was something her father used to say whenever she asked him about his military past. Always in a half-joking, half-serious tone. She had never known what it meant. Until now. The abandoned car, the envelope, the message, it was a signal. Someone wanted her involved. Someone was pulling her back into a story she had never asked to inherit. Secure the car, Ward ordered quietly. Full forensic sweep. I want prints, fibers, everything. But she already knew that if Tranter was involved, there would be no fingerprints. No mistakes. The man had always been precise. As she walked back toward her vehicle, she replayed everything she'd learned. The classified project, the deaths ruled accidental, and the one photograph that connected all of them, her father included. The desert compound at the center of it all was the key. She just didn't know what it unlocked. Yet, back at Belmarsh, the governor had assembled an emergency task force. Maps, digital logs, CCTV timelines, they covered every inch of the incident. But all eyes turned to Ward when she entered. We have new intel, she announced, placing the envelopes on the table. These weren't left at random. Tranter's escape isn't a breakout. It's a message. One official raised an eyebrow. A message to who? Ward paused. To me. A long silence filled the room, heavy with disbelief and tension. She briefed them on the photo, the classified mission, her father's connection, and the note from the abandoned car. None of it felt like coincidence. It was deliberate, structured, orchestrated. So what does he want? Someone asked. Ward looked up at the wall of surveillance stills, grainy images of Tranter walking calmly through the last hallway before the cameras cut out. He wants a conversation, she said. This isn't revenge. This is unfinished business. But conversations with men like Tranter came with consequences. And one of those consequences had already begun. Moments later, the operations chief entered the room with urgent news. CCTV update, he said, breathless. We found footage of a vehicle leaving the prison boundary minutes before the breach was discovered. He tapped a remote. The screen changed. A dark SUV, tinted windows, driving slowly, deliberately, as if waiting to be noticed, but not stopped. The timestamp aligned perfectly with the escape window. Ward leaned forward. Zoom in on the license plate. The image sharpened. She stared at the numbers, not because she recognized them, but because they had been scratched, as if someone took a blade to the metal to distort the digits. A deliberate smudge, an intentional challenge. She exhaled sharply. Run traffic cameras along the old industrial routes. If he's moving, he'll stick to back roads. But before the team could disperse, the operations chief added something else. There's another detail, he said, voice tight. The SUV came from inside the prison gates, not outside. Ward froze. Meaning someone inside Belmarsh unlocked a service road that hasn't been operational since the early 2000s. A forgotten road, a hidden exit, a tunnel through the system itself. Someone inside is helping him, Ward said. But she didn't need to speculate who. The classified file had already linked the names. Her father, Tranter, Daniel Cole, and now, one more name whispered in the report's margins. A name Ward had overlooked in the chaos. A name connected to a sealed position within Belmarsh itself. Someone who had been there the entire time. But before she could speak, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. She answered slowly. A familiar voice, distorted but unmistakable, spoke on the other end. Inspector Ward, it's time you knew the whole truth. The line went dead. She stood frozen. It was Tranter, and he had just invited her into the shadows. The ghost road. Inspector Naomi Ward drove through the outskirts of East London with her headlights cutting thin lines through the early morning fog. The voice call from Tranter replayed in her mind over and over, as if mocking her with every echo. The man had escaped Belmarsh, evaded a national manhunt, and still found time to call her directly. That alone made one thing clear. This wasn't an escape. It was a summons. She followed the coordinates texted minutes after the call. An abandoned industrial road, once used by the Ministry of Defense. now fenced off and officially erased from public maps. Locals called it the Ghost Road. No one used it. No one patrolled it. No one questioned it. Ward parked her car at the last functioning street lamp. Beyond it, the world fell into silence. A single SUV, the same one from the CCTV footage, was parked ahead, engine still warm, hazard lights blinking faintly like a dying heartbeat. Ward approached slowly. The driver's seat was empty. The doors unlocked. A note rested on the dashboard. "You've been walking in someone else's shadow. Time to see the rest." No signature. No fingerprints. But next to the note was something she did not expect. A small flash drive with a red security seal. Her father's seal. She pocketed it and followed the faint tracks, leading past the SUV toward an old concrete service building half swallowed by weeds and rust. The metal door hung open. Inside, the walls were lined with forgotten equipment, dust-thick shelves, and the smell of old oil. But deeper in, the space transitioned, cables on the ground, a lantern lit recently, evidence someone had prepared this place. And standing in the very center of the room was a man she recognized instantly. Daniel Cole, the missing Belmarsh officer. But he didn't look scared, didn't look hostage. He looked calm, almost relieved. "Ward," he said softly, "I figured they'd send you. You vanished. You left your badge behind. People think you're dead." He exhaled. That was the idea. Before she could respond, heavy metal footsteps echoed from behind her. She didn't turn. She already knew who it was. Tranter. He stepped into the dim lantern glow, the calm precision from all the reports visible in every line of his posture. He raised his hands slowly to show he was unarmed. "Inspector Ward," he said, "I didn't escape Belmarsh. I was retrieved." Ward kept her breathing steady, heart pounding against her ribs. "Start talking." Tranter nodded once to Cole. Cole stepped forward. "This isn't about us," Cole said. "It's about the project we were part of. Your father's project. The one the government buried." Ward clenched her jaw. "You're saying my father was involved in whatever you did in that desert compound?" Tranter tilted his head. "Involve?" "Inspector," he let it. The room seemed to tilt beneath her. Cole reached into a metal lockbox and handed her a folder, the same one she saw redacted in her father's records, now restored in full. Inside were operations logs, signatures, photographs of detainees, and, at the back, a final memo written by her father. "If it collapses, eliminate all surviving participants. No exceptions." Ward felt her stomach tighten. Her father had written the order that targeted his own team, including Tranter and Cole. "But he didn't finish the job," Tranter said, "which is why someone else did." Ward looked between the two men. "Belmarsh was the last piece," Cole added. "The government needed us gone before we could talk. So they orchestrated your transfer," Ward whispered. "Your escape. Your disappearance." Tranter nodded. "We never wanted vengeance. We wanted the truth out. And we needed you, Inspector, the daughter of the project leader, the only person who could open the last encrypted file." Ward stared at the flash drive in her pocket. "They're going to come for us," she said. "No," Tranter replied quietly. "They already have." As he spoke, distant engines rumbled. Multiple vehicles. Getting closer. Cole extinguished the lantern. Darkness swallowed the room. "We move now," Tranter said. Ward took one last breath of still air before the storm. And as she stepped into the night with them, no badge, no backup, only the truth and the danger ahead. The first thought that struck her was the most terrifying. Her father's ghost wasn't gone. It had only just awakened. If you think this story was intense, wait until the next one. Before you go, comment where in the world you're watching from. Your city might inspire the next investigation.